And if streaming gets stupid, then I'll stop streaming. But first, we're going to prepare the paper. So we're going to hide the sky. And you take basic newsprint, piece of newsprint like I've got this very big, 11 by 17. And you want to rub it with your compressed charcoal. First, we'll turn it so that that isn't in the way. And newsprint's really the best thing for this because it's a little, you want to use kind of rough newsprint. And I'm actually going to tape it down because it will move around a lot. You want so you can clamp it or whatever you have at your disposal to hold your paper still. All right. I am streaming this on Cardo. It seems to be working okay. So you want to watch it on that, or you can watch the recording of it later. You're going to rub over the whole paper. With the charcoal. And then if you have a chamois, that's the best thing to use, a little piece of the chamois leather. But if you don't, you can use pretty much anything. I use a rag. And just rub that charcoal in there. Clamp this, guys, so it stops moving. And then I'm going to go over it again, second coat. And I've got another camera that you guys can see. Not that one. Oh, it's not plugged in. Never mind. There's another camera I set up in a different place so you can see me from a distance, but it's not necessary. So I rub that in, but not as much. I don't want to rub off as much of the charcoal this time. I want it to stay pretty thick. All right, now you take your kneaded eraser, but take only a piece of your kneaded eraser because it's going to pretty much destroy your kneaded eraser. Turn my dude back on here. And I'll have to shrink him down a little bit, unfortunately, but it's just the way it goes. So instead of drawing the darks, what you want to do now is to draw the lights. So if you have any problem seeing the difference in between the darks and the lights, go ahead and squint at your model or your reference and start by pulling out the highlights. So you're going to look at the model in a whole different way because you're looking at the light areas of the model instead of the dark areas. This will destroy your kneaded eraser and make your work surface really dirty, but it's okay, it's worth it. Because what you'll start to see is you'll see the things in a whole different light, per se, as it were, in a manner of speaking. And it's kind of similar to using toned paper. You can always put the charcoal back if you pull it out in the wrong place, or if you decide you pulled too much. So I still have to squint at my model. Cut this in a little bit more. So this really just drawing the shapes of the light. You notice I'm standing when I do this. It's much cooler, much more fun to do big charcoal work standing up. In fact, it's fun to do art standing up because you can get your whole body into it like you never could sitting down. All right, so once you get it pretty much laid out, I'm going to go back in and start and put back in the darks. So looking again for shapes. To give me a medium tone so that I had something to work the lights off of, to pull the lights out. So I'll also pull out lights back here behind the figure, here, just a bit. Oh, you totally touch the paper. Who cares? You get dirty. Just don't touch your face. No, you can do this with digital if you want to. I mean, I've done it digitally. You just use a gray piece of paper and you draw with white instead of with black. The point is to make you see shapes other than always seeing the black parts or the contour parts of the figure. It helps you to see the figure in a different way. Or anything that you're looking at. It doesn't have to be the figure, but that's traditionally what we do it on, is the figure. So yes, it gets very dirty very fast, but that's okay because it's fun. And I like to use my fingers a lot when I'm doing this kind of work. So it's super dark up in here, back of that hand. I've also got the shadow on the ground, which is darker. So I can take stuff that's darker than the background and lighter than the background and just leave the background in the middle. So if you're using toned paper, you want to have a pretty dark, like medium gray, not too pale. You won't get the same effect on a paler piece of paper. You want to have something that has a bit of value to it. See this really dark. If you have problems seeing your lights and darks, so you don't see anything without value. If you don't have value, you don't have form. And if you can't see the value, then your drawing is going to be flat. And what are we trying to create? We're trying to create an illusion. We're trying to create dimension. We're trying to create quality of line. We're trying to create a sense of reality, right? So by developing the ability to see values in a more substantial way, can go in and do this opposite drawing. So you need the hardest thing I think for most students is to pick a drawing that's truly or pick a reference that's truly chiaroscuro. You need a true, strong, light, dark image that has a lot of light and a lot of dark on the body, on the figure itself. If you don't have that, then you're not seeing the form. This charcoal's a piece of poop is what that is. Charcoal is a natural substance, so sometimes you'll come across a piece that's no good. Well, I don't draw with a mechanical pencil. I wouldn't. No, I would never draw with a mechanical pencil. I have a drafting pencil that I use occasionally, but that requires a sharpener. It actually has a point, and it's also softer lead. Mechanical pencils are just too. I'd rather draw with a ballpoint pen than a mechanical pencil, honestly. I mean, I just don't like the quality of the line. It's just not good enough. It's too faint. It's too washed out. It's too wimpy. There's no substance to it. You can't get a good, intense line. Ah, I took in too much for the neck. But that's okay, because I can use my eraser and pull it back out. Oh, there's muscles on the hands. They're just very small. It's mostly tendons. It's more like a system of pulleys. So you have muscles in between your fingers. The only thing muscles can do is pull. So if you have muscles between your fingers that are called intercostal muscles. You have muscles in between each rib too, and they can pull your fingers together. To pull your fingers out, you're not pressing them out, but you're pulling with muscles on the outside of the fingers that are on out here. But most of your muscles are in the forearm, and they come down into tendons that go into your hand. So you can go like that. You can see all the tendons. So you have the biggest muscles you've got on your hand are the palmaris muscles, the one on this part and the one here, and they're just adductors and abductors. That's why you can do this. And there's little tiny muscles in between, but they're not that big, and they're only really for the fine tuning. The bulk of the real force of the muscle is in the force of the strength of the hand is in the tendons and the arms, the forearms. So that is chiaroscuro drawing. I have to admit, though, it's the first time I've drawn a male in a while on a chiaroscuro. Females are a lot more curvy, a little more fun, I guess, in some ways. All right. I am going to go wash my hands. And when I get back, we shall do some Photoshop. I want to show you how to make layers and then export those layers with a batch file so that you can take your layered Photoshop file that you guys have been, some of you guys have been building up layers on, and even if not, maybe you're interested in doing this anyway. But you can take your layered Photoshop file and you can batch save off each layer as an individual JPEG, and then you take all those JPEGs and you put them together as a PDF. And that's the one thing that's really missing from the 122 class, that they don't explain how to do that. It was in the class before they changed it, and I think they just didn't remember to include that kind of process. So let me go wash my hands, and I'll be right back.